Well, hello everyone. Here to show you that the word test, the coloring activity right here, is basically talking about the word test right here. Basically what you see right here talking about is like the meaning of the word test it is. And a lot of times that since I am a student now, that basically I was working on some school stuff it was, but basically that if most of us are familiar with any type of online classes it is, if you're taking any online classes or anything that you're doing online, if it's paying a bill or if it's anything to do with maybe any social media sites it is, but basically talking about right here is the word test it is. And like with anybody that may say about the next one could be maybe the word trust, but I might talk about with test though that you can maybe test. It's like talking about if it's anything that if we think that our account may have been hijacked or anything like that, maybe by hacker or anything like that, have a antivirus protection software or anything like that. But right here is I went ahead and wrote down in here of like the basic words like from what I've seen in the dictionary so far as say for acknowledge it is basically the word test basically talks about right here is these words I would wrote right here of talk about. I'm sure that I'm like spelling may be pretty close, but you have right here is for process and then to submit and of course with proceed. And a lot of times though that if we were to be tested on something such as anything that's related to a math test or I can go ahead and maybe write that down too, but if it's math if it's anything to do with a lot of times in college courses it is that they have like what you call like step 1 and step 2 or something like that, and then on your hand that it could be like anything to do with language arts, if you for language arts. And I'm like talking about anybody that may wonder about say for language arts, for like language arts type of subject it is. A number of subjects I could probably think about besides algebra, key algebra, geometry, and of course with calculus also. The other subject I may have talked about it's like in some of the previous coloring activities that I did basically talk about say with the word test. And I had taken some tests this morning it was, and I was thinking about that while I was taking a test that it was like that with most of the time with tests though that if there's going to be classes that are going to be testing you on something that they have to be turned in, let's just say if you have 2 days to do it, and then you have about 4 tests you got to complete and then submit them to that way that they can receive them electronically it is. And basically though that with most of the time with tests though, if it's electronically or if it's papers or something like that, whatever it is, that a lot of times say with the word test though that what does basically test mean. And with that if I can remember right that with most teachers that they would want the students to write it in their own words basically about what they think it means. And if I want to go ahead and maybe write down some notes here about what I think it means though that talk about say with test, it's like so far as time for like a best word to describe is like for the word test is like time for a quick peek, I guess you say quick a quick peek or something like that. If you want to maybe look at that like a quick exam or say pop quiz, anybody that may say that if they want to use like say pop quiz as an example for like if we were be taking a test it is. And a lot of times that maybe other things too that we may think about, but on the other hand that I took some tests this morning, and I can remember that I'm like that you read through there and then you kind of mark whatever that best answers best describe your knowledge. And a lot of times with most students, I don't know about every student, but with some students or whoever that if you're working for a company that's going to test you on something, anything like that, if you're just getting started though, that I'm sure that most team faculties and of course with counselors, managers, that they representatives that more likely that they're going to give you a test to take that I don't know if it exactly means that knowing about that there's a study guide that you were supposed to follow. I'm like there was a study guide that you were supposed to follow, but I'm sure that the tests are more likely are related to more likely the fact it could be like a number of reasons. That the test could be related to if you're just getting started, trying to get your education back in the process, stuff like that. But I'll go ahead and draw right here. It's like a clock right here, and just to kind of represent is like so far as the test though, that a lot of times that we may think about, if we're given a test by the teacher, it is, and then they may only give you a certain amount of time, just to complete, an assignment, or if it's the final exam or something like that. To go ahead and draw, like say, example right here of a clock, and like I said, that with most tests though, that talk about to show some appreciation or say gratitude, and then to submit it's like a grade, it's a graduate graded value it is, and basically as a train up value that you have right here is that the basic definition for the word acknowledges as basically that if we were to be taking a test and looking at the test, let's say if you're starting on a blank piece of paper and you're given like a form and about maybe about this size right here, and about the size of this calculator. Let's just say you got the calculator, like a lot of times with a math test that they give you, sometimes it's multiple choice and sometimes it's written down, say on paper it is, if they want you to mark a letter between A, B, and C, that type of stuff, and to write down the correct write down the answers though. And a lot of times though, with any students, that they may wonder about if they're given a test, is there really a right or wrong answer to something? And more likely that they probably say about that a lot of times no, that mark the best answer. I guess a lot of times that they more likely ask for is to mark the best answer that best describes your acknowledge for what you think the best answer is. And if you get some wrong, then hey, that some people may say it's not the end of the world, but on your hand that they may need to go over some other more parts, say of the school session with you about that if you only scored like a certain number of a setting on a test. Is a lot of times I can tell anybody here that with math though, math would be like one of them, that math or any type of a general, say for studies or anything like that, like say with math it is that I could probably tell them that yep, that I'm like less than perfect. That let's just say that if I can make a scale right here, most of us probably know about all the subjects like science. I can maybe also write down here science also. But if I were to draw a scale right here, let's just say if it start out right here with 10 and it goes to 10, 20, and 30, 30, 40, and 50. And 50, and let's just say it goes to 60, 60 and maybe 70 it is. You have right here is a time scale right here. If you were to draw a scale right here, just a scale that more likely you may think that what it would look like, or any type of particular scale it is. You say go ahead and go to 20 here. Like I'm just kind of giving an example. I don't know if this is all accurate, but you'll go right here. 1 through 20 it is. But let's just say if I were to draw my scale, knowing about with the subjects though, that talking about a lot of times that if anybody who is just getting started it's possible that they may be about right here, in between. Like I can go ahead and switch colors here, but let's just say that if they were about in the 30% right here of knowing about their scale, for acknowledge of, it could be like what you call is like for 30, which mean I guess it more likely mean I can go ahead and go back to the blue right here. But let's just say they start about right here, they work their way up, and then they go down a little bit, and then goes down to about right to here, goes level, and then goes to about right there it is, and it goes back down. And a lot of times with most test scores, I can go and use them at different colors just to kind of show people maybe a little about what I'm talking about. If you start about right here, let's just say if your score you went to it about right here up to above medium, and then to super high, and then all the way to maybe 60% it is. With some students though, that if they don't really have all that, all that experience, to say education, in math it is, or maybe science, or maybe English literature, or any other type of subject it is, they can maybe say that that it starts by right here, and I'll go and use another color again, go and work right here with the pink. But let's just say if they say that that it went right here, that it went right here, went back down, and then it went up here, and then it went up, to about your 20s, and then it came back down again, and it went back up, and then all the way, to about close to the 70, right here, 70 mark. But let's just say that these scales, I guess, are measured by by quality, about knowing about that you have right here is that if you were tested and then maybe the score was about this percent, and then and it went up to about maybe a 35 45%, and it came back down, and then you earned some more credits to that the rest of that you say that person habited semester it is, to see if it was schooling or if it was work or something like that. But it's like, there's a scale right there. But a lot of times, though, that some of these could be related to tests. And like, besides assignments turned in and assignments missing, there may be assignments missing too, that they may say that the assignment's missing. But on your hand, if you have it to where here, if you have like what you call is like for the word test, though, that a lot of times with most tests that we could probably say that, hey, I'm like, even if you did turn something in that your score was only so much, you only scored like what you call is like a 50, and maybe 100 of course is required. And with some people that may say that that they followed the directions, they did what they were supposed to do, and their score may seem to be pretty, that a little bit disappointing, something like that. But on average, though, if you're going to be taking a test, like with me, if I'm going to be taking a test, the one thing that, of course, I kind of think about is that besides taking the time to maybe read it and then, of course, to mark my best answer and knowing about it, the first thing I kind of really think about, like if it's calculus or if it's geometry or any subjects like that, is knowing about that I didn't have this subject before. I had it whenever I was in the 7th grade. That would have been about 1999. It was about 98, 99. And there may be some students that may have, it's been a long time since they had that subject. So whenever they're tested, that they may feel like saying that, well, I'm not going to bother to take the test because I'm going to fail it anyway. But on their hand, and I guess a lot of those exams, a lot of those tests, I guess, are just kind of tests, basic updates. I guess that's pretty much what they are. I guess you can call them updates. They're just updates. Even though if it has been over 15 years, since you've had taken a class, then I guess you say that you can call them updates. They're basically up to date information about skills about what you know and what you still can remember from that time, that semester it is from whenever you tested. And a lot of times with anybody that I was taking again some examples of a math test, and I can tell math test it is, and I can tell anybody here that I don't know how well I'm going to do on it, but at least try to do it by talking about with tracing and graphing it is, that there's only so much education, of course, that I would know. And if I were to, like what you call rate my scale, I'll go ahead and pick my color right here. I'll go ahead and see here. I can go ahead and maybe use the dark green right here. But let's just say my scale from where I started was at about right here, and let's just say that if it came back down just a little bit, and it may have gone up, maybe if I gotten a certain score percentage on a test, and let's say if it was if it was an assignment that was due, and then I earned a certain amount of credits on there, and then let's just say that that went up a little bit, but then went back down again, maybe because I didn't do very well on the math test it is, and then it went up, and then of course went back down, and then it goes back up again. And a lot of times, though, that anybody that we'll just go ahead and right here, go ahead and stay with the topic of so far as the word test, other than get into maybe the scores, and then for the things, of course, that needed in order to be able to proceed, turn in the assignments and stuff, but or if it's anything related to a job or anything like that. Because I know with most of the time with like driving tests that they have it to where that they test you on some things such as road signs, and then vision tests, and then they may like they may want to do a DWI test on you, of course, and if you ever pull over, or if they want to test you on anything related to, say, driver's license, accurate date or something like that. But so far as the word test, though, that I can tell anybody here that a lot of times the teachers would want me to put it in my own words of so far as, what does test usually mean? It's like talking about that if it, usually means like what you call is like between a right and wrong answer. And a lot of times, though, that whenever you're given a test, that seems like a lot of times, quite a few of them I've taken, that they say that you got a number of them wrong. And then, you're supposed to score a certain amount. And with anybody that may say about after they take a test, that I've taken a few of them, quite a few times, more than maybe 5 times it is. But basically, though, that even if you have studied, I'm like, talking about that, if you study, I'm like, you can spend, during the whole, hour, maybe all day, maybe studying a little bit, a few of the answers it is. And we can maybe think about, maybe not all, but some of them could be what you call accurate. But on your hand to it, I guess the whole part about the test is the teachers would probably say the answers are not supposed to be written necessarily on paper. They're supposed to be known about. If we were to say to do the exercises, you do the steps by steps of, reading a book, or if it's going through a certain process or anything like that, doing any type of anything that's required, such as writing an assignment down, it is more likely it's all about knowing about that from what you remember, from writing this down, for writing the answer to this down, writing the answer to that down. It's possible that you may do well on a test, and then you may do okay. Some people may say that they did okay on a test, but the whole part about this whole thing about acknowledge, though, so far as with acknowledge, and I'll go and put this in my own words, and I looked it up in the dictionary, though, and I gotten some, I guess say some ideas about what it acknowledge. But anyway, keep thinking about, maybe if there's a G in there, but I'm like, talk about every time I'm thinking about doing step by step, I'm like thinking about, maybe I'm missing something here. But anyway, but so far as talking about, say, for acknowledge, though, for acknowledge, that I guess you say that it's like, I think either a G, I think it's a D, but anyway, but talk about right here so far as for acknowledge, of basically talking about is like a word for, like what you call, it's like a, for between what you call educated. It's like between how educated a student is. Is that we take I can say we or us. I can say us or we. We take this important step we take this important step to be you say that to learn to learn from that say from that class. And basically that there may be other definitions, of course, you say for the word test, but on your hand too, but I talk about, say, with testing, with the testing, you say you acknowledge about what you know about, the certain answer it is. And basically that if there's really necessary a right or wrong answer, but just knowing about is the test. It's like talking about is I guess you could say that just to try it out, trying concentrating. Concentrating, and then so far as so for time concentrating, and on your hand too, that they say that is to think about the course. And I could tell anybody here, if it was maybe a cooking course, if it could have been if this test was related to how to make a blueberry muffins, or if it's how, what does 1 teaspoon of sugar or something like that equal to? This was like a cooking test. It was that we may remember a little bit of maybe one of our favorite things, and I guess I can tell anybody here that the one way, a good way to remember some of the stuff is to remember remember the favorite times. Remember the favorite times, during the session. See, during the session, it is. I say session, session. During the session, and of course, the steps and classes, just to remember your favorite time. Say in class it was from what you work with and then what you were using. It is just a kind of a way to maybe remember the things that you used, and on your hand too, that maybe to remember, if you want to to remember the teacher's name, you'll remember a few things as well. And remember the notes if you wrote the notes down. And I can maybe think of a few other things too, but on the other hand, remember the notes, and on the other hand, that it could be related to maybe to remember the accessories, if it's the accessories. To remember the accessories that were used. Remember the accessories that were used, as long as along with the tools. If it could be like what you call accessories, the tools. Tools, or if it's programs. And I can tell anybody here that that a lot of times, like I say, with the internet, though, that a lot of times downloading and installing a program, like if this was an online course, it is that more likely with anybody that may say, like with testing, though, just to test to see if the internet speed, and of course if it was downloaded and installed properly, that type of stuff it is. But basically, though, that I'm talking about is so far as for remembrance, to remember the basic steps, as like for remembrance it is. I'll go ahead and I'm like, that so far as remembrance of what you learned whenever you were taking that class, and whenever you and a lot of people probably say about that. If you want to look at it, it's like you remember your favorite color. I'm like that. If you were taking notes during class, it was, and may remember doing something in class, such as working with something on a notebook, maybe writing the date down. And, if I don't know, anybody that may say that that they scored about 15% better on a test whenever they bothered to maybe to remember to write the date down. Let's just say, for December it is. It's like talk about writing this in crayon. It is for December. If the test was in December, or if it was in January, it is between January, February, and March. But on the other hand, that I guess there's other ways to describe tests, though. But basically, talk about it's like for note, there's time for the quick just to test your knowledge. And even if you do get a few answers wrong, that they could probably say that with a lot of times, though, if you're like when you got your reading glasses on and you studied, you took notes of it, and you still didn't do very well on the test, it was. But they probably say that the whole meaning about the whole word test is like they say that is to try not to I can go ahead and use the blue blue right here, but try not try not to put too much pressure on the brain. I can maybe put that to put too much pressure on the brain, on the mind, I guess you could say, is like on the mind. Try not to put too much pressure on the mind, and and also is like knowing about that. Even if an answer is wrong, to to remember. And it's basically saying that to remember that to make sure that about your education is it's basically is talking about to improve. I guess you say that the word could be like what you call is like improve. I know I'm out of space right here, but to improve approval of the learning skills. So, like with anybody, if most of us have played that game, maybe like Jeopardy, if it's Wheel of Fortune or anything like that, a lot of times that we probably think about, we get really mad whenever we get a certain answer wrong or a certain problem or any type of decimal fraction wrong it is. But on your hand too, that knowing about really, the tests are not necessarily. Depend on what's going on and with the test though, but not all of them, I guess, are are necessarily designed to put too much pressure on the mind, and then it's like if you fail the test, then you're going to have to take all these classes all over again. It's possible that you may have to take a few of them over again, but on your hand, that knowing about. Like with anybody, that if they were to be taking a test for if it's school or anything like that, maybe job interview. Or if it's maybe to make sure that your computer is accurate, it is maybe something that you may think that you did wrong, and just to test something, it is test the temperature of the food, or if it's test the speed or test the tire pressure, any type of test. That more likely they say that a lot of times that if the test fails, then more likely that more time that may need to be spent on it. And a lot of times anybody may think about, it's like so far as between proceeding, of course, if you fail, though, I'm like, talk about with fail. A better way to describe, if anybody were to fail a test, it basically means it could be, more time, to work on the studies, and studies the courses. And I can tell anybody here that like let's just say if you see the classes, and of course the classes, but talk about like just to work hard, to try harder. I say that you may not even have to try harder, but I'm going to put that try harder, and keep working on it. And I can tell anybody here that I could probably say that there's been a number of tests. Even the first time, there's been a number of tests that I've taken that I think I failed, or I have not scored the highest percentage. And I guess you could say that don't expect to be an expert at a genius about everything. Like we may think about. That one thing that more likely that they have been the only expert at a genius about something, maybe the fact about that, maybe they should have washed their socks before putting them on or something like that, or that they, or maybe that adding dishwasher, making sure that to add cold water instead of warm water or something like that, to a wash a cycle or anything like that. But basically, though, if during the test, though, that I'm sure a lot of times that with most students that they get frustrated, during the test, and if let's just say that if it has to be done at a certain time, stuff like that, it is. And a lot of times, though, with most tests, that really are tests really designed? Are they designed? I guess I can go ahead and maybe put like what you call like a yes or no. Are they designed? Are they designed to I say your definition, or I can just put a question. Our test designed to our test designed to put more stress, more tension. I guess I can say more tension, more tension, more tension. Pressure on the mind. And anybody that may say about yes and no, that between yes or no, go ahead and put like we say A for yes or B for no, and usually there's about three or four different choices, yes or no, and C could be maybe. But and then D could be none of the above. But on the other hand, too, the way I would think about it is that talk about none of the above though. But basically, our test really designed to put more tension in on the mind. It is, and my best the answer more likely would be is that is like as of for right now, I could probably say that they're about equal. I'm like if you want to say yes equal. Yes equal, but on your hand too that no, that not there, to not there for you to get mad. I guess you could say for any type of mad or frustration. It's basically that they say that so for most tests though, a lot of times anybody say if you got tests coming up, maybe in 2 weeks or so they're going to be testing you on something it is, and let's just say if you fail the test or if you don't score a high percentage, it is with most of the time with anybody that I guess everybody has their own ability to how much that they can learn, and then on the other hand too that for what they can remember from the test it is. And I can remember this this was back in the high school year, back in 2003, and of course back in 2004 it was that I can remember that the teacher was saying about it was related to a history test, that they were talking about the stuff that but what chapter it is, about the Romans, or I think it was world history test that we were taking. And it was during that finals week, and I can remember that there was a few answers that I think I lost a few points. I think about 12 points or something like that on there. But still, the teachers knew that I tried. And on your hand too, if you're going to have a teacher that knows that you tried, a lot of times that they may say that your scores are about acceptable. It is, and but knowing about that with most of the time, we say with word test is that talk about with anybody. If you're going to be working on a test, like if you would be writing down a date, talk about between today, for 12/20 the 3rd, since year 2000, for 2014, since 2014 is almost over with. But let's just say that if you were to write the date down, for December, December 23rd. Of 2014, and basically though that we that could be like let's say for Tuesday it is, that could be a Tuesday, and we may be surprised from what we remember from after we write something down or after we look at something. We may be surprised that it could be 3 or 4 o'clock. I would just say it could be almost 4 o'clock p.m. Central Daylight Time it is. We may be surprised on what we can remember from whenever we were writing down a few notes it is for what we remember from, if it's a chapter, if it's like what you call, if you remember writing down chapter it is, for chapter, and if you can remember the session, of it. You say, write down, say, for session and, for, spell check, anything like that. And a lot of times anybody think about some of the assignments are done by Word, it is. But anyway, follow those things on, so those assignments on Word it is. But basically, to say with the word test though, is basically talk about, say, for your knowledge about the things that you may know and you may not know before, then you know now. But I guess the whole basic score about right here, talk about what these test results is knowing about is, so far as, trying the best. Really, trying your best, trying, see here, trying, our best. See, for the best of acknowledge, and I can go and maybe write that down, for the best of acknowledge, the best of acknowledge, the best of acknowledge is what to be asked for. It's like talking about like the amount of time, of course, it takes for you to go ahead and complete an assignment, and you write down notes, and then after you were tested, and then you were aiming for maybe 150 or so percent, and then maybe the score was a little bit less than that, stuff like that. But basically though, that whenever tests come up though, that a lot of times that you may be surprised from what you do remember from whenever you're doing something, such as writing something down, and you may not be able to score an ace. That's how I usually say it. Like talk about this with ace. You may not be able to score, maybe an ace. I see here how I know how I talk about saying it, but so far as ace, I guess. For ace, I guess you call it AIS or something like that. Ace, it's like so far for 100%. It is. You may not succeed. Score 100%. Maybe on all tests and on all exams, on all type paperwork forms. But on the other hand, too, to talk about that the things that more likely is to try on is knowing about that from the requirements, and of course maybe what it's recommended is. But so far as when I guess the whole question is of like what's the best part, whole main part to be focused on is basically about the fact about for the most important part skills about what you remember learning during the whole session of between the process and of course submit and of course with proceeding it is for the next step, and for that from what you learned from that course it was. And I tell anybody here that I'm like one of them, that whenever I had to take a test, that sometimes I may put it off until the last minute, or whenever I do take the test and then I don't score very well on it, and then you may say you may have to retake the test and such, but talk about say for knowledge and knowing about between the right or wrong answer it is of knowing about your time that you spent to take the test, and then they'll just to kind of keep you on it, and then basically that I can tell anybody here that basically I think that's really what it means so far as the update. Just to test for to make sure that the school building it is at the school or business that they have the most recent activity. And of course, it could also be, it could also be like what you call like the information, the most recent information, and they could probably say that yeah, well, anybody that may say that, well, after the manager takes it, after Professor Keela takes the test, I'll go ahead and take it. I'm like, does everybody have to take this test? And they may say that there are some people that may have to take it, but then they may choose to take it too. It's such as about almost everything is going to be stressful between like what you calls like between working the camera accessories, or it could be say battery pack on the camera, or a calculator, anything like that, trying to draw that perfect shape, about almost anything is going to be complicated. But knowing about the fact about maybe how much time and effort, and of course that the skills that you took just to be able to proceed with the next with that for that type of skill. And basically though, that most of the time that if you be downloading any type of software related to classes, or if it was anything important, such as an online application, it is, just to test your knowledge about what you know about how to complete this, and then if there's an exam that you got to take. And a lot of times, though, with anybody that may say that, so far as with the knowledge, though, that the answers that you provide are, say, for the best of your knowledge, just to get the latest information about for what you're doing right now. That basically, I guess that's pretty much what I asked for. But and like most of us, that they may have not had all the subjects that are out there, and I can probably say that between my learning experience could be about from all that's out there that I have not heard of, maybe about this large, but my learning experience may be about this big. So I'm like scored at about maybe 25, maybe 30% compared to maybe 2,000%, something like that. Like that. I guess there's always something new to learn about there. But so far as you say the word test, I basically talk about for what you know. So far you have to proceed for what you call, it's like for the dream assignment. But other than that, I talk about here for between the dream and of course something that maybe that you got your education for. But so far between a process and of course submit, and then and a lot of times that you go by these words like between submit, knowing that you're done with this, and then submit to send it off, electronically. It's like do paperwork is of course with the process. So proceed, process and proceed. It is for the. It's like after you're done with something, and then don't close out of the window yet, or don't put it in the envelope, but you're not done with it yet. You gotta check or the mark or something like that, saying that it's done and ready to be turned in. But other than that, talk about right here is like so with the words submit, and I talk about it's like for knowing about the study, to do the basic steps of talk. They say the word test coloring activity.